So,
Good evening, welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of July 15, 2019, here at 6:30 in the Carter Room. Could I have everyone please stand for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we move on to anything, I'm going to ask the board to entertain a motion to move the action and discussion items before we interview the candidates for the Town Manager Search Committee. If I could have somebody make that motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
I will second it.
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Public comments, are there any public comments for anything that's on the agenda right now? Apparently not. There are no public announcements. Right now, we'll be doing public appointments possibly after the interview of the candidates. So at this time, I would like to recognize Chief Nuttall, please.
Thank you. I think you're going to have the room inundated again for members of the fire and police department, so just bear with us for a quick moment.
That's okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you again for letting me be in the agenda tonight. The reason for this is I'd like to share a story and make some brief presentations about an incident that we had just about a month ago. Everybody really knows the town of Abington always comes together when the chips are down. We always help each other out. This community really is known for teamwork. And I think that after you hear the story of the actions that were taken at a fire a month ago, it really resonates to the core values that this community is all about. A month ago on June 18th, the Abington Fire and Police Departments received calls for smoke coming from the rear of a house on Plymouth Street. Both departments responded appropriately, and a house fire had been discovered by a neighbor, Mr. Kurt Knepschild, who is in the audience. I'm going to have you stand up here in a moment, Mr. Knepschild. He discovered the fire, made sure that 911 had been called, that both departments were notified, and then he took further action from that. He actually went over to investigate what was burning, what was going on in his neighbor's house across the street. At that point, he realized that there was indeed a house fire. This is a large, older, two-story farmhouse, and I think he met one of the residents who had already was close to being outside the home and was informed that there was still another resident inside the house. So Mr. Knepschild, on his own, without any protection, without any training, entered the house, entered the second floor of the house in heavy heat, smoke, and fire conditions, and began to rescue the trapped victim that was there. The occupant at the time, I believe, and I wasn't there, so I'm trying to fill in these missing portions prior to when we arrived. I believe he had been overcome by smoke and he was unconscious. So, Mr. Knepschild, do you want to step up? The story doesn't end there, because also responding, and I believe the next to arrive at the scene, was Abington Police Officer Sean Kelly, who also, without any fire protection, any respiratory protection, or I'm assuming fire training, also entered the building to assist the neighbor, Mr. Knepschild. Sean, you want to come up? Now, at this time, again, this is deep in a building on the second floor of an old New England farmhouse with heavy fire in one of the bedrooms on the second floor, and they are up in that environment. In the heat, the smoke, I can only imagine the conditions you gentlemen had, trying to grab the victim, the occupant, and bring him down the stairs to safety. About this time, I believe Sergeant Mark Kilgore showed up. Sergeant, if you want to come up. And he assisted them in getting the victim down, as well as making sure any other occupants were out as well. And these gentlemen, all three of them, from when I spoke to them, they really don't want the notoriety. They're just saying that they're doing what everybody would have done, and I agree with that. However, you really did do a heroic act, and the actions from you three gentlemen in getting this resident down unquestionably saved his life. There is no question in my mind, and I want to thank you for that, for saving his life. The family's here as well. I'm sure that they're happy as well. So I have for the three of you just a simple letter of excellence from the fire department. Mr. Nefshield, thank you again. Officer Kelly, thank you. Thanks, sir. And Sergeant Kilgore, thank you very much again for your actions that night. Thank you. Allison, do you want to, Representative Sullivan, would you want to do yours now or at the end, or?
We can do mine now.
Okay. Actually, Senator, would you mind reading these?
You want to read it?
One of you guys, or Senator, wants to read it for me.
Sure, Senator, would you mind?
Absolutely.
Excellent. How are you, sir?
Good. How about yourself? That's quite all right. Well, good evening. I'm John Keane, State Senator. I'm here with the State Representative Sullivan, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here and congratulate these gentlemen on their really heroic actions. You read so much today in the newspaper, and you turn on the TV, and you think that everything is bad in the world. And unfortunately, it takes a near catastrophe to bring out goodness. And these gentlemen went above and beyond their call of duty as professionals, and above and beyond anything that somebody would expect from a neighbor. They responded with courage and heroism, and they saved a life, which is truly remarkable. So I'd like to read, I guess, the representative's citation.
And it kind of hurts to talk, but I just want to come here and show my support.
Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to each of these gentlemen in recognition of your heroic and selfless actions in saving the life of another person. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 15th day of July 2019 at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, signed by Robert A. DeLeo, Speaker of the House, and offered by Allison Sullivan, State Representative. Congratulations, and I have a similar citation for each of you. And again, thank you very much.
And I also have one for firefighter.
We'll take care of that in a moment.
Okay,
Yes.
never mind.
Thank you, Representative Sullivan and Senator Keenan. The story doesn't end there, because once these three gentlemen were able to begin bringing the victim down the stairs, about this time Abington Engine 2, which was staffed by firefighter paramedic Ryan Amato and Ken Wright, arrived on scene, as did an off-duty Abington firefighter, Jared Driscoll. Once they got there, firefighter Ryan immediately went into the building to begin assisting these three gentlemen getting the victim down. He also gave an outstanding report as to exactly what we had, which enabled us to alter tactics and immediately went to a second alarm after hearing what he had. And then firefighter Ryan also went in to assist getting him out the last few feet of the building. At that point, the occupant was placed on the front lawn, and firefighter Ryan alone began CPR and life-saving efforts on this victim. The other firefighters, Driscoll and Wright, began running a protection line, a fire hose, to begin protecting all the crews and to make sure that everybody else was out, because we weren't 100% sure that there were any other victims in this building. So they went to work doing that. At this point, all the other firefighters are showing up. So meanwhile, firefighter Amato, Ryan, you want to come up? Firefighter Amato began the initial life-saving efforts of the resident and began doing CPR alone. Different firefighters and paramedics were beginning to assist him as best they could, but he had total control over the patient. I was witnessing this, and to be honest with you, I made a choice at that point either to help him, which is below my training. I am not a paramedic, and they knew what they were doing, or continue the operations with fighting the fire, which is what I ultimately chose to do. And as soon as an off-duty chief, a neighboring chief showed up, I put him in charge of the overall patient transport. Ryan continued doing CPR until he was relieved by a Rockland engine company that showed up at the scene. And they were geared up to go into firefighting operations, and instead I directed them to assist with the patient. So they immediately switched mental gears and began medical care as well. The Whitman ambulance had been requested early on. They arrived. And ultimately, the patient was transferred to the back of the Whitman ambulance, and it was staffed by a team of paramedics from Rockland, Whitman, and Abington. And I was not there, but from what I heard from a neighboring chief, it was one of the best examples of invasive patient care, life-saving care he has ever seen. So, for what you did, and if you can accept this on behalf of all of the firefighters and paramedics that assisted with this incident, I also would like to present you with a letter of thank you as well. Now you can give it to her.
So I do have a citation for you as well. The way Chief described it is that you went above and beyond in the sense of being able to just completely change paths. And as your state representative, I'm thanking you for another great job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the final portions of this story, the Whitman ambulance was escorted to the Mass General Hospital. MedFlight was not flying that night because of the weather, under, I think, a local, either Abington and or state police escort, all the way in. So when we talk about community coming together, from neighbors, public safety officers beyond their training in protection, our firefighters switching gears, halfway through the incident, we really did come together. I know there are members of the family here. Now, the gentleman that was saved, he had some severe injuries. He has a long road to go. But again, it's the actions of everybody here and all of the other medical professionals that are still caring for him that really afforded him that chance to make a recovery. So, excellent job by everybody here. Thank you.
I don't.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you,
Chief.
Chief.
I'll say something.
You make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We take a 5-minute recess so these guys can get whatever pictures, give us a chance to thank them and clear the room.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Still blending, sure.
Okay, I guess we're back on the air. Thank you for that. That was a very, very nice presentation. Okay, so we decided to move the action and discussion items up. So approval of June 24, 2019 open minute session. There is, I believe, one correction, I think, that at the end, motion was made by Jim Connolly, seconded by Kevin DiMaggio to adjourn June 24th meeting. Jim Connolly wasn't here, and I know that I didn't do it, so we just have a correction for that. I think it might have been Tim that.
It was either me or Ken, I guess. But if we could just look back and just adjust that, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as adjusted,
Amended?
as amended.
I'll make a second on that, Kevin?
I'll second that.
Second that? All right, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained? Abstained. There you go. Thank you. Rick, the update on F1 Auto and Steve's Auto?
Yes, as you
Please.
recall, these are two licenses the board had questions on. One's a commercial garage, one's a Class 2 license. Steve's Auto, as you can see attached, I do have the certified letter we sent to Steve's Automotive. They are visually not operating anymore, and as you can see, I did ask them to respond by a certain time, and they have not done that. And again, there's the visual inspection, there's nothing happening at that address, so at this point, I would recommend that the board recognize the license as forfeited. If he wishes to come back and apply for a new license, he certainly can do that with this board, but as of right now, there's no operation there whatsoever. He did not notify us that he was forfeiting his license, but again, at this point, there's no reason to believe he's conducting business and he's not responsive.
You need that in the form of a motion?
It would be helpful, yes.
I'll make the motion that we recognize that Steve's Automotive, right?
Correct, yes.
I make the motion that we recognize Steve Automotive's license as being forfeited.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimous. And F1?
Yes, F1 is a Class 2 license, and his bond had been not renewed by the bonding company. As it turns out, there was an error from the bonding company. We do have an updated bond. I know Ken had asked about this because it seems like there's no operation there. There are cars on the site, and I do know because, as I mentioned here, I did actually deal with a consumer complaint this past week, which seems to have been resolved amicably. So I do know there is business going on at that location. And again, the paperwork that we were awaiting is in order. So at this point, there isn't need for any further action, but that's the update I know Ken was particularly looking for.
Okay, no further action necessary, then we won't take any. All right. Town managers report, Rick, please.
Yes, a couple items here. Number one, the retail marijuana applications. We have two license applications that are pending. There are host community agreements that have been submitted. They've are in the process of being reviewed by town council. I had hoped that as early as this evening, we could discuss in executive session some of the terms and conditions. The language is rather boilerplate, so it's really a couple of the terms and conditions. I hope to be able to have that available for the board to review at the next meeting to see what, if you find it acceptable, or what other, let's say, provisions or you would like to include. So that's coming. We do have recently two other interested parties who would like to, let's say, participate, but we only have two licenses, and as town council had recommended that we should take them in the order that they've been submitted. Number 2, our fire department feasibility study. We did put out a request for qualifications. Friday was the closing date for those submissions. We got 6 submissions. The fire chief and his staff were reviewing those, and I would expect that at some point this coming week, there'll be a decision on which firm will be engaging. The North Quincy Street, Chestnut Street project, as you know, that is designed under the jurisdiction of the state for a roundabout. There was, rather than traffic signals or other traffic controls. And this past week, we've begun the process of the takings for the two easements at 2 properties that's required. These 2 of the 3 property owners that the town who had not previously responded to the town's request to discuss and come to an agreement. Both properties required an appraisal, as well as a second opinion on those appraisals. And as it stands right now, those appraisals combined were about approximately $50,000, plus about $5,000 in assessing fees. Those will be paid from Chapter 90 funds. So as that process is moving forward as quickly as it can happen, it's probably still going to take a couple of years before this gets through, goes through the tip list and is actually funded by the state. This is not being funded by the town of Abington or the city of Brockton.
And Rick, that is, North Quincy and Chestnut, that's where that variety store is, and is that,
No, that's Chestnut and Hancock.
oh, that's Chestnut and Hancock?
Near
So
the
it's
apartment building.
down
That's
near
a
the
different
apart- Okay,
project.
so
Different
because some people asked me, and I
We are doing
was a
that
little
one, too.
confused myself.
That one's,
At a different
Behind
phase,
it.
but
Yeah.
that's correct.
So they'll be doing 2 roundabouts.
No, there's one round. We haven't gotten to the engineering piece of the Chestnut Hancock. That is in the process of being approved by the state for engineering funding. The Chestnut North Quincy Street, the design is all set. It's just a matter of getting it on the tip list and getting it ultimately funded by the state. So these are the steps that have to be taken in order to have that approved. We need to deal with the property owners to make sure that the land and other legal issues have been resolved before the state's going to fund it. So it could still take a couple of years for that to happen, but these are the steps that have to happen legally before the state funds that.
Okay.
Sound about right to you, Jack? We happen to have yes, okay. And the only other thing I'll mention is, the housing survey that's part of the master plan. It's actually being conducted by Old Colony Planning Council on behalf of the planning board. That is online, as we've, included this because I know there were some members of the board who are particularly concerned about this. It's online. It's also on our website if anybody wishes to partake. The point of this is for residents to share their opinions about the need for housing, mixed-income housing, where it should be located, future development. It's really, just like the forums we had on the master plan, it's another way for people to contribute into what the vision should be for housing in Abington. The only other thing I'll mention is that on Friday, the process of replacing all the carpets in this building will begin. As you know, on the first floor, we had some flooding the last month or month and a half, so those have to be replaced. At town meeting, there was an appropriation for replacing the carpets in the town hall and library. So if you see a dumpster outside the building, it's not Vital Records that we're disposing of. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Rick, will you just mention the dog park? Did I miss that?
Did I miss that?
No,
I'm
you
sorry,
didn't.
yes. The project continues. It is on schedule to be completed the end of July, early August. And I'm very glad you reminded me of this, Tom. I missed this. There is a grand opening scheduled on August 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'm told the ceremony will start promptly at 10 and will include raffles, doggy ice cream, I'm not sure what freebies are, and more. So again, that's August 10th, which is a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So put that on your calendar. It's not whether or not the park is officially open then, we certainly hope so. So call ahead before you bring your dogs.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Rick on anything before we let him go, or?
I got a question about housing. We got 500,000 gallons more from Brockton. Can we earmark, say, 10% of that to be dedicated to elderly housing,
Future senior housing,
senior housing?
homeless reserving.
I don't know that we can do that. That's certainly a conversation that it's worth having with the sewer commission. I think the location is important, because how much of that, because, Brockton doesn't serve the entire needs of the town in terms of treatment. So depending on where the location of housing may be would determine, who would be helpful, whether it's Brockton or elsewhere. But again, in terms of just the policy question, that may be something you might have we can set up with the sewer commission, if you'd like.
I would just hate to see it get all gobbled up with big projects, and we got elderly. I talked to a woman the other day. She was in an emergency situation. She spent 3 years before she got into elderly housing. That's just not right.
But that's a housing authority. I know some people get mixed up between,
Yeah.
Abington doesn't have any senior housing per se. That would be the housing authority, which is state and federal jurisdiction.
Is that something you could find an answer out for us on?
As far as what specifically, Kevin, about
Like
designating?
what Jim was saying, we got an extra 500,000 gallons of sewage granted, if you will. So now all this housing is going up. We need senior housing. It's been talked about for years. We're looking to just say 10% of that 500,000. Can we earmark 10% of it, 50,000 gallons for future senior housing?
I will speak to the sewer department about that. Number one, I'll verify what the capacity still is. I believe we're well under
Okay.
the capacity, but I'll ask that question.
That's fine. I just, we don't want to be sitting here a year down the road and all of a sudden we have nothing left. And, at least if we be proactive with it, if we can do that, at least it's there for us.
Okay, Rick, check on that, please,
to
thank
do
you. And let us know at the next meeting, please. Anything else?
I'm all set.
I have a few things. So bear with me. The last meeting, we talked about putting old business on the agenda. I don't see it on there yet, but can we is that going to be on the next agenda, or is there a timeline for that?
Yeah,
yeah,
Rick,
sorry.
there's just, I wanted to get it on the agenda too, and I talked, Kenny had wanted and stuff like that, and we got some information from town council. Just want to be careful what we have on there, what we, you don't want to go back like 5 years, so we sort of have to look ourselves to see what we want to put on it, whether it's something from a month ago or, 2 months ago, or even say a year ago. But I want to be sure that we're not going way back, because you'd have to, cover all that information. So I want to be sure exactly how I do it. I've talked to town council, I'm not worried about it, and I will probably have it on the next agenda.
Okay.
And if I could, I know the way it developed is I had asked some of my peers about how they handle old business, and they were pretty unanimous in that old business, you have to specifically list what you'd like to speak about in old business. And so I did ask Mr. Corbo and shared his input with the chairman. So going forward, it can be formatted in a way that doesn't violate the open meeting law, and that the board and others know exactly what old business people want to discuss.
So my understanding would be like a working punch list as you go.
Almost like a menu of things, right. So it's not a situation where you bring something up in a meeting, and again, it hasn't been on the agenda. Nobody knows what it is. The board doesn't know. I don't know. We can't be really prepared to speak to it because it's not put out there properly. But again, like you said, if there are standing items you'd like to have on there, that's similar to what some other communities do, who have that agenda item.
Okay.
But it can't just be old business and not having any idea what people want to talk about, and kind of random thoughts that come up in meetings on old business. That is not going to comply with the open meeting law.
Okay. The second, just for clarification, you had talked about Chapter 90 money
Yes.
for that. Is that out of this current fiscal year, or a future year, or?
This is the fiscal year that started July 1. There's about 385,000, Jack, and that's been apportioned to the town of Abington for Chapter 90 funds.
So is that, that was already equated into like repaving the roads, so that's taken out before we figured out what roads are gonna be repaved in
Yes,
town with the Chapter
yes.
90?
Well, that's
Okay.
something that
It's not
DPW...
added on all of a sudden after the fact, right? That we gotta make up for?
No, that's a reimbursement program. There's 385,000 set aside as the DPW goes through their checklist and invests money in certain roadways, then they apply for and get reimbursed for the funds that are expended. You have to apply in advance for those, but then you get reimbursed after the fact. The state has to approve those applications for reimbursement, then you do the project, and then you get, then you receive the Chapter 90 money after the fact.
Okay. It was brought up tonight, the feasibility study for the fire station. Moving forward with this, I'd like to put something on the agenda so we can talk about it, creating a subcommittee. I know it's early on, but whatever committee we do, if we do decide to move forward with a new fire station at the time, it's kind of good to have people on board now so they kind of know what's going on. I know it's kind of a long process, but I'd like to put it on the agenda so we could at least have a discussion about that.
Yeah, you will need some sort of building committee. Yes, that's the only appropriate way to do it, right.
And then, I don't want to misspeak, but Thursday when we were at the senior center, I know we've already talked about a couple things, but one of the things that came up was emergency management. I think it's the police chief, but I just want, is he the emergency management director?
Yeah. Pursuant to the town charter, the police chief is the emergency management director, yes.
Okay. Is there a way that we, I don't know how often there's been an update on emergency management, but it seemed to be a concern of the seniors, different plans and whatnot. Is there a way we could maybe get them into a town meeting and have the next selectmen's meeting, have them update us on certain things?
Well, we could, but it'd be helpful if specific about what those things are. It's obviously for him to come in here without knowing exactly what the questions, concerns are. You know, I know that he's obviously works closely with the, COA director and the COA, the members of the council, so it would be helpful to know what it is that is of concern or interest.
It's more of just an update. A lot of the seniors that we talked to the other day didn't know who it was. They didn't know plans, if there was, emergency disaster plans in general, I guess. I guess just more of an update. If this happens in town, do we have regional services? If it's a regional service or regional cooling facility, heating shelter. Sure. If it's only a town-only thing, is it, we going regional? Can we do regional? Do we have to go town? Just more of an update and kind of, it was more of like, I guess they don't have any information. They would like to just know stuff like that. So just a general update that, from him, whatever he, pleases. I'm the director. This is what's going on. These are the plans we have. Just more of a thing to open up and talk about it so that people have an avenue if they want to talk. And the last thing I want to put on the agenda as well, I know we're moving forward with it, it's kind of going back and forth, but the police department study, I want to put on the next agenda. I'd like to talk about forming some sort of subcommittee, a selectmen subcommittee on that. I'd like to put that on the agenda so we can have a discussion about that.
On what
moving
specifically?
Forward. Just a selectmen subcommittee on that police study.
Oh, yes, okay.
If we could just put that on the agenda for next meeting or whatnot, we could talk about it.
Yeah, and one of the things, Kevin, that you want to do, and I certainly can appreciate it, is to look at the scope of what we want. What we want as town leaders and whatever, and I appreciate that, so.
Yeah, I could add more to it, but I know Kevin's not here and whatnot. I'd rather let's put it on the agenda, that way it's out there, and then we can just talk about it.
Yep.
None of this is on the agenda.
Jim?
Yeah, I got one more thing I forgot about. Rick, I talked to you about Rockland Selectmen wanting to get a joint meeting with us. Can we get that going in August sometime?
Sure, this is regarding the...
Union Point,
Union Point.
Southfield, Union Point, whatever they call it nowadays.
Didn't somebody knock on your door?
Your door.
Wasn't my door.
Wasn't my
They
doing.
called me on the phone.
yes, we will pursue that. Yeah.
Anything else? Tim, you have anything? Nope.
No, sir.
All right. Rick, I know you're heading out, so thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Somebody want to give Ken Coyle a call on the hotline? You got to call him on that. You get the number?
I got the number.
Probably have to dial 9.
I guess you're right.
You have to dial 8.
8.
Oh, 8?
Yes, I'm sorry.
8?
Yes.
Why is it 8?
Just saying, I didn't create the system.
Not in service. Please check the number and try your call again.
Not in service.
Thank you.
Probably 8-1.
Why would he give you his real number? He gave you a fake number.
8-1.
Don't say it out loud.
See
over
if
the air.
it runs public TV.
Maybe I'm saying the wrong number.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Ken. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Do we have a volume on this?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. We can now.
Okay, good. Okay, good, thanks.
Ken, we're going to start the interview process with the people that want to be on the town manager search committee. What I'm going to do is go down in order of the way I have them on the list. It's no particular order, it's the order I was given. And I'd like to ask any of the candidates if you take 2 minutes at the most to just introduce yourself and tell us why you want to be on the committee. We'd appreciate it, and anybody, if they have questions after everyone speaks, we'll ask and I'll ask that we try and keep those to a minimum also, okay? Is Paul McDonald here? Paul, you're up first. Just name and address, Paul, when you get up and...
Hello. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello, my name is Paul McDonald, 45 Spruce Street, and I'd like to be considered for the committee because as a prior nursing home administrator, I know what it takes to be accountable, have a staff be able to report to you, be available to the public, be available to who I serve, and financially be responsible what I can do and what I can't do, and get that meaning across to everyone. And my children are old enough, or getting old enough, I should say. I have 4 children, and they're enrolled in everything, and I see some issues with what could be better or what is great and what needs to be more publicized, things like that. So I'd just like to, the new town administrator, his vision, I'd like to see a vision and have him be accountable to everything and be open to talk with everyone and stick to his plan, his vision, and go through all the departments and everything like that.
Okay. Any questions?
You might have said it, and I might have dozed off there for a minute. How long have you lived in town?
Approximately 15, 16, 17 years approximately.
Thank you.
I moved here in 2003, so whenever, do the math.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone? No? All right. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Samantha Hall Linehan, she available? She is. This is good.
Good evening, Samantha Hall Linehan, 664 Hancock Street. I've lived in town my whole life for about 3 years. I went all the way to Whitman for a couple of years, I know. Just bought a home. This position is paramount to the future of the town. I think that we need a town manager that's a great communicator, that can be a liaison between what the Board of Selectmen's vision is and then executing that with our town departments. If I was to be appointed onto the committee, I would really like to do a deep dive into talking to our department heads and employees about what they see, that they think the town would thrive with new management. Also, I'm just about to complete my master's degree in public administration, which is essentially a degree in town management, so I think I could share some great knowledge with that. Also, I think we need a town manager that has experience with getting state grants. Over and over again, professionally, I work closely, I work for a nonprofit and work closely with state government, and I see Abington just constantly miss out on grants and really going after our state reps to try to get earmarking. Just the other day, I see that Whitman Hanson and East Bridgewater both got grants for school safety, and I just thought, like, where is Abington? Why aren't we on there? So I think that having someone with that experience and that can work with state government is very important, and I really want a town administrator that's not just transactional, but that can do some goal setting and work towards it. So that's it.
All right, so Samantha, you're applying for the job to interview, not for the town manager.
Not yet. I know I don't have enough experience.
You're not going to recommend yourself at the end of this.
No, I'm definitely not going to recommend.
Sure, because we will check.
I'm very happy in my current job.
Stole my question. Are there any other questions for Samantha? Nope.
Great.
All right, Samantha, thank you very much. Cynthia Whiting?
Hi, I'm Cynthia Whiting. I live at 100 Colonel Hunt Drive. I've been in town now for 25 years. I submitted my name for consideration because I feel it's important to be able to be involved in the community in which you live. And I know there's important issues pending. I mean, we just sat here and listened to Rick talk to you guys about all the things going on with Chapter 90 and intersections and dog parks and, just a lot of changes and things that are going to be taking place in the next few years. I've kind of sat back in the last couple of years because I stepped off Finance Committee about 2 years ago, and I've just seen a lot of changes, some good, some not so good. I would like to see somebody that can kind of come in and work and just kind of pick up the ball and run with it. Work with the department heads. I know Rick and the former town manager have kind of really worked closely with them, and they've both been able to get the school on board so that there's not so much a separation of town and schools. I think that's important, that we have somebody that, has that same mindset coming in. I would like to see somebody that's going to take pride in the town, whether that person lives in town or doesn't live in town, but kind of maybe have a vision out there, a face out there in the town, participate in some town functions and stuff, not just always be maybe in the office and just kind of, just actually be out there. My qualifications, I've served on the Finance Committee for, I think it was like two terms and maybe like another year, so it's 7, 8 years. I've also worked with the library, Board of Library Trustees. I was on that for 2 terms. As far as my own personal work, I have a degree in finance and a paralegal certificate, and right now I'm Vice President and New England Audit Manager for a national title insurance company. I have as my role as manager, I was able to, participate in hiring and different people, and I have a department of 5 people scattered throughout Mass, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. I work closely with the upper management, going through making sure compliance and company rules and regulations are in place. I appreciate you considering me, and if chosen, would work to, really hard to find the best and most qualified candidates to offer up to the Selectmen for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Ken, can you hear everybody?
I can't really hear them over the microphone, but I can hear you guys fine, but that's okay. I have their applications in front of me. So.
Okay, all right. I just want to be sure, so. Any questions?
Question.
No one?
No.
No?
Great.
Nobody?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ian Welch.
Do you want to move the podium closer to the table so he could hear?
You want to move the podium closer? Sure, Nancy.
And the
Whatever you want me to do.
microphone?
We'll try. Oh, that's not going to work.
He's gonna pull his back
You want
up.
to just put a chair at the table and they can
Huh?
sit at the table?
Whatever you want. You want to do that?
That would be good.
Sit up here?
Yeah. Here's the chair right here.
You think?
Thank you.
Doesn't matter to me. This going to work that way? I don't want any feedback. If anybody who been interviewed before wants a chance to come back up, I'll wait till the end. All right, Ian?
Ready? Okay. My name is Ann Welch. I live at 81 Highland Road. I am a resident of Abington for a little over 22 years. I've served in many, many boards and committees, as you can see from my application, since I came to town, first of which was the Personnel Board, where we were responsible for reviewing performance evaluations, setting wages, and recommending pay increases. I have a strong desire to serve in my community, as you can see from my background, but I think the unique skill set that I bring to this committee is that I'm an HR professional. I have nearly 20 years of HR staffing and recruitment experience. My most recent position was as a senior recruiter. I just retired in June, so I have plenty of time to commit to this. And I think what I would bring to you would be the ability to come up with some recruitment strategies, and you as my client be able to say to you, what are you looking for? And then I would go out and source for and advertise and assist the other members of the committee that expertise. I have an undergraduate in business administration, and I have a graduate certificate in HR management. And I would very much like to serve, and I served on I was the community representative on the last search committee. So I bring some continuity in that I've served in that capacity before.
Okay.
It's very nervous sitting this close to you guys.
I know, I'm very intimidating.
Any questions?
I have none.
I have none.
Ken, was that better? Can you hear?
Yeah, a little better, thank you.
You still with us, Ken?
Yes, I am, thank you. Yeah, a little better, thanks.
Do you hear me, Ken?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Ken, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you very much.
Thomas Tardy? Thomas, how are you?
Hey, Tom.
My name's Thomas Tardy. I live at 96 Everett Street. Unlike the people who have been up here before me, I've only been a member living in this town for 3 years. The difference is, this will be the last town I ever live in. So it's important to me that this gets done and gets done correctly. I do not have a lot of HR experience, but what I do have, I spent 16 years as a general manager of a corporation. We did about $15 million a year. I had 18 people working underneath me, all of which I hired personally. My task was to find the right people that could work as a team and get the job done, the task at hand. I believe I bring that to the table.
Okay. Any questions?
I have none.
I have none.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Tom, thank you. Richard Smith. Richard, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Richard Smith. I live at 99 Dorsey Street. I've been in Abington since 1996. My wife is a lifelong resident and really loves the town. And I think the unique experience I bring to the town is I have an opportunity that I've worked with the last 3 town managers as well as the interim town manager. And they've all brought different things to the table. I feel that we need to find a town manager that is able to combine all of those positive attributes of our last town managers and kind of put them in one person, somebody that has the foresight and the ability to see what's going forward in the town. Our town is growing rapidly by the day, certainly dealing with some Union Point stuff and just all of the current issues that we have. We need to have a town manager that's going to work really hard with the planning committee and drive our town in the direction that we want it to be in. I don't think we're in a bad place, but I think we could definitely be in a better place. I think my experiences with the former boards of selectmen as well as the town managers give me a intimate working knowledge of how the town actually operates, and I can bring some of that knowledge to the table and help selecting the next person that's going to be proactive with you guys as well as the townspeople. And in my eyes, communication is paramount. So,
How, you're saying that you work with the other town managers and stuff, in what aspect? How?
I was on the executive board for the fire department union. I was the president for 6 years and the vice president for 10 years. So I've worked side by side with the fire chief. Certainly I do have some workings with the police chief as well. And obviously the board of selectmen and the town manager. So I kind of have a good insight as the workings of the town.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
I have none.
Nothing.
None? Ken?
No questions. Thank you, Rick.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Jack Kane?
Hi, gentlemen.
Jack, how are you?
I'm actually surprised I was called in for an interview. I'm more of an employee of the town. I no longer live in town. I did grow up here. I've worked for the town for 31 years. I think I've dealt with probably 11 town managers, administrators, executive secretaries, dating back to, I think the first one was Paul Dorian back in 1987. I've negotiated contracts for the DPW, and now I'm the president of the Managers Association, so I'm here more of as an employee having to deal with these people than I no longer live in town. That's why I was kind of surprised that you guys wanted me so badly, especially Kenny.
Well, we had to give everybody a chance to, who applied.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think I do bring a lot to the table, but I also understand I'm not a taxpayer here, which makes a big difference.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody?
Not me.
No.
No? All right, Jack. Thanks,
you.
Jack. Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Rick Collins?
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Rick.
Rick Collins, I live at 74 Orange Street. I've lived in town 10 years, I think officially next week. A few reasons I'm asked to be considered for this committee. The first is professionally, I've engaged with or worked with more than a dozen municipal managers over my career, whether that's mayors, executive secretaries, town administrators, town managers. I've seen a lot of different styles. I've seen a lot of different personalities. I think I have a pretty good idea of what works better than others. There's good points of everyone, and everyone has some weaknesses, and I've seen a lot of what works and what doesn't. I also have a deep understanding of how municipal government works. I understand the difference between 30B and 40B and 40A and 90 and Chapter 70 and all those different acronyms. I understand how it all works together with all the town boards and town committees and how residents benefit from each individual piece of that. And also, I've been part of hiring committees. I've been in charge of hiring. I've been in charge of writing job descriptions. I've led the interview process. So this is another piece that I'm pretty comfortable with. So one of the things that I would like to do if I'm selected is to spend some time, brief time, listening to stakeholders. So listening to town employees, and I think listening to residents as well. What do they think we need in a next town manager? What is working well? What are some of the strengths that we need? If that means putting out a quick survey, then I think we need to take the time to do that so everyone feels like they've had their voice heard in putting this together. My one main goal is to make sure we get the best town manager we possibly can that's going to keep this town moving forward. I think we have a lot of good stuff happening, but we need to make sure that we're really capitalizing on it. So we need to make sure that we have a town manager who knows how to do a good budget, because we've had some really good financial stewardship. We need to make sure we have a town manager who understands the importance of developing our commercial tax base and how that fuels everything that we want to do in this town. We need someone who's a good communicator, who believes in good communication with a lot of the town residents and the boards. I think that's been a weakness, particularly of late. And I think we need someone who understands the need to drive projects forward to completion. So with that, I'm going to stop there and say thank you for your consideration. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Just to add, in case anyone's not aware, I'm also on the planning board, chair of the Ames Knoll Study Committee, and I am on the Abington Youth Soccer Board of Directors.
All right. Any questions?
No.
No. All right.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Coughlin.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Jim.
Jim Coughlin, 153 Helen Drive. I've lived in town for 33 years now. Back in the mid to late 90s, I was a member of the Finance Committee for 5 years. Spent 1 year as chairman. From there, I became a sewer commissioner for 3 years. I probably could answer that question a little earlier about the sewer stuff, but it's not my ball game right now. I'm a certified public accountant. I have an office over on 80 North Ave. And I do a lot of work I do taxes, and I do a lot of other work with nonprofits and other commercial businesses. One of my other functions is I am the secretary-treasurer at the South Shore Regional School District. South Shore VOTAC in Hanover is again, everybody's aware, is a school district. Abington is a member. We meet with all the local finance committees every year. We have a budget of a little less than $14 million that we oversee. Having the experience with the finance committee, I think that whoever the new town manager is, he or she, would possess a large function of finance background, in a sense of with the town manager is the person who presents the budget, which is a large aspect for which, again, town meeting revolves around. I think that's important to understand all the financial ramifications, and everybody brings strengths and weaknesses to the table when they have a finance background. So, again, having been in the late 90s, I was actually here when Rick LaFawn was here the first time. And then stepping back from town government after I left the school committee, I did remain active through Abington Youth Basketball. I was on the board there for 10 years. I was on the board of the Abington Education Foundation for about 12, 13 years, and I resigned there back in January. So, again, I love this town. I've been here for 33 years. I don't tell people I grew up in Rockland, but, I love this town, and I think that, the direction the town goes from here is important.
All right, great. Any questions?
No.
I don't tell people that I grew up in Charlestown or Weymouth. Because that's not a bad thing.
It shows.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Ellen Delaney?
Good evening.
Good evening.
If it's okay, I'm going to read from my notes here.
Sure.
My name is Ellen Delaney. I reside at 18 Washington Street. I've lived in Abington for most of my life, graduating from the high school in 1977 and working at my first job at Trukey's for 11 years. When my three now-grown children were in school, I was involved in the PTO, serving as both chair and co-chair for several years. In applying for this position, I feel that because of my involvement in attending and watching town meetings and various board meetings, keeping up with town government, and participating in it for over 30 years, I would be an asset to the committee. Having been a member of the Police Station Study Committee and the Permanent Building Committee, I welcomed all suggestions and ideas before making my own decisions. Because I am retired after 31 years as an insurance broker, I have the time to devote to the search committee. If I am chosen for this committee, I will have an open mind toward all candidates. We need a town manager who is willing to work with all departments, be transparent, and is going to look out for the best interests of our town. I love Abington and look forward to working with the other committee members to choose the best candidate for the town manager position. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any questions?
Not on mine, no.
Thank
you. Ellen, thank you. Andrew Burbine has decided to not apply, or he withdrew his application He has a lot of things going on in the fall that he said would take up a lot of his time, and I appreciate Andy, one, applying to be on the search committee, and two, at least giving us notice that it'd be better if he did not serve at this time, so, just so you all know that. Karen Bowen.
Yes, I'm going to withdraw my application as well because I'm hitching my writing to another star. So I'm not going to have time. If I get the other, I'm given the other position that I'm going to apply for, then I wouldn't have time to give my full concentrate on it. It's very serious and so, but I do appreciate the consideration of even taking in the application.
Okay.
Ken, did you hear that? Karen Bowen.
I'm sorry.
Karen Bowen withdrew her application.
Okay. Thank you for putting it in anyways, Karen. Thank you.
Yep, we all appreciate that, Karen, thank you. David Shawless? Say that, Shawls, I'm sorry. Is it Shawless? Well, I said it right the first time.
Let's make up any name.
When I DJ, that's when I DJ, I get all the names.
Even a broken clock is great.
You guys know me as Steve from the Recs Department.
Oh,
Let's make up any name.
I'm calling by whatever name.
My name's David Chawless. I've been a resident for 13 years. Me and my wife are involved in the Cub Scouts. I'm involved on the committee, the Parks and Recs Committee, which you guys voted on recently. You know, I might not have all the qualifications of some of the candidates as far as the degrees and certificates, but what I do have is two young boys that are extremely involved in scouts, baseball, soccer. They go to the camps. They both attend public schools. So to say that I have, you know, been ingrained in the community in the past 13 years is an understatement, and you know, I'd love to serve on the committee. Rick stole some of my thunder. We do have a lot of good committees, but I think a lot of communication gaps between those committees. I'm not blaming anyone, but I think that's a huge part. You know, is getting these groups together and really working for the better of Abington. And I appreciate your consideration.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Any questions?
I have none.
Anybody? No?
Thank you, guys.
All
Thanks,
right.
Ken.
And also, William, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. William Adamczyk. Is that close, Nance, do you think? Close, yeah. Unfortunately, he's not available. He's not here, right? Because he said he wouldn't be available. He was one of the applicants, and we do have his application here. So, one, I want to thank everybody that did apply. I really do. This is going to be a tough road, I think, but I do appreciate the people that took their time and applied. So, gentlemen, nominate anyone, or okay.
Are we all going to be nominating one moving forward and voting, or how are we doing this?
We'll open it up to nominations and then with the majority vote.
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
Really?
We're opening it up to the board for,
I can hear you good, thanks.
we're opening it up to the board to, for nominations now, for board members to nominate somebody, which with a second will then be taken to a vote. A majority vote would put that person on the committee.
All right, so who nominated, has anybody nominated anybody yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Can I nominate someone?
Go ahead.
Sure.
I'd like to nominate Ann Welch.
I'll second the nomination for you, Kenny.
Thank you.
All right, Ken has nominated Ann Welch. And been seconded by Tim. Any further discussion? Any questions or anything? All those in favor of Ann Welch signify by saying aye.
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 That's three.
Ask for nays.
I'm sorry?
Ask for nays. And then we'll
Ask for, oh, okay. Any opposed?
So 3-0.
3-0
And 2.
and 2. Okay.
So that's the majority, so Ann will be on.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All righty. Who wants to nominate next?
I will nominate Richard Smith. Make a motion to nominate Richard Smith.
All righty.
I'll second it for you, Jim.
Jim Conley has nominated Richard Smith. Tim has seconded for the Town Manager's Search Committee. All those in favor of Richard Smith, and make sure that I hear you, please, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? None opposed? Okay, Richard Smith. I'm gonna make a nomination myself, stepping out of line here, but, not out of line, but, I'd like to nominate someone that's fairly new to the town, but someone who's believed, I think is gonna be here hopefully for a while. And it's hard for me because I'm very familiar with Jack Kane, I'm very familiar with Rich Collins and Jim Coughlin. But I also think this town needs a little bit of newness. And I will nominate Thomas Tardy.
I'll second for you.
Okay. Second. So I've nominated Thomas Tardy to be on the committee. Tim has seconded. All those in favor of Thomas Tardy, my nomination, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Kevin, what was yours?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
No.
All right. So it's 3-2.
3-2, yes.
3-2. So Thomas is on. All right.
I want to nominate Samantha Hall Linehan.
I will second that. Samantha Hall Linehan has been selected and seconded. All those in favor of Samantha signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. So 4-1. Okay, 4-1.
And I'll nominate Ellen Delaney.
Ellen Delaney. Ken, Ellen Delaney has been nominated. Anyone second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of Ellen Delaney signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No opposed. Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, correct?
That is a full
That's
committee.
5. All right, we do have a full committee. I do want to appreciate everyone that put in an application and all the people that took the time to interview. This will be again, like I said, I think will be a tough process, but it's something that needs to get done, and it's something that we have to move forward on. So I think nominating tonight was a good thing, so.
Do you want to mention the other two members, FinCom and School Committee?
Chris Coyle from the school committee is the rep, and Russell Fuller, but have they made, I don't know if they've made a selection yet.
I thought
They
those-
have.
those
That's
are
their
the
representative.
selections.
Yeah. Russell Fuller is the finance committee representative, and Chris Coyle is the school committee representative.
Oh, okay.
So Chris, Russell, and the 5 we chose tonight will be the members of the committee. We'll meet and choose a chairperson on their own, I assume. Are we gonna write up a charge to give them?
We'll work.
I think the charge is in the charter. I know they're supposed to come up, supposed to present no less than 3 candidates to us that we vote on.
Right, no less than 3 candidates.
Okay, and what I'll do, I'll talk to Rick also just about setting things up and when they should get a meeting going and stuff like that.
And can I say something?
No.
Come on, I'm in New Hampshire, come on, let me say something. Ian Welch will probably remember this, what the last town manager search committee that we had, at the end when we had our final candidate, I think it was 3 or 4, we presented them to the town at the senior center, and all departments could come and all residents could come and meet them all and hear what they had to say. I thought it worked out really, really well, so I would hope that the new committee would maybe look at doing something like that also.
Ken, I was thinking that myself before the meeting tonight, and actually doing it as part of a posted selectmen meeting, and just listening to, because that way the town could speak to us as well.
I tend to disagree with that only for the reason that once you put it on camera, people get intimidated to go up front of the candidate. This was a very informal thing, and we had, some, cookies and desserts and coffee, and people could just mingle and talk to them. And it worked out really well, but you can ask Ian that, but it went very well. I thought a lot of residents enjoyed it, so that's all.
That's fine, you had me at cookies. We'll do it your way.
I mean, he had you with cookies, but Tim, I sort of agree with you that I think that, it almost like an interview, but with the townspeople and some of the departments and stuff like that.
I'm happy as long as the town is invited and gets to come and speak to the committee and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, before the committee starts to recruit.
Right, I agree with that. It's, I like a public forum like Rockland did. They invited the town employees, town people to come in and just talk to the committees and put forth what they wanted in a town manager, so that the committee would know, okay, this is what we're looking for.
Right. Well, I say, what Ken is talking about is having the candidates, once they've been selected, so. But
right, after they decided on, 3 or 4 or 5, whatever they want to present to us, those people would come in,
Oh, I see, we're talking two different things.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say, and I agree with what Tim was saying, that, I'd like to have like an open forum with the people that we've selected now, so they can hear from department heads, residents, what they want.
Right, Ken, what I was talking about is having a joint meeting with our committee and their committee, possibly in the auditorium of the high school, and inviting everybody from the town to come and speak to the committee, and speak, to the committee on what they would like to see.
Right, but we also don't want that to prohibit them starting the process, in other words, putting in the beacon and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, certainly not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, no, we'll get that done too, so.
Yeah, because I was thinking of doing this possibly sometime in August, before school starts, is one of our meetings, but I'd certainly want them to start their work ahead of that.
Right.
Yeah. Congratulations to everybody that was appointed, and thank you for everybody that put their names in. Appreciate it.
And we can still have cookies, right?
Yeah, I'll bring you some cookies.
Thank you.
Yeah, not brownies, cookies.
I'm not eating any brownies Ken brings.
All right. Is that it? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion this time.
Will you? For real? Who seconded?
I'll second it.
Seconded, all right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you all very much, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.